I jumped in a freezing cold lake for 30 days and found some very surprising benefits that I was not expecting, but then there's also a lot of setbacks and challenges that I also was not expecting. So the very first week doing this, I had my brother-in-law that was willing to do this with me because he was living with me at the time, and we did it New Year's Eve, and that was right at midnight. We jumped in, and I was not expecting how cold it was going to be. Because I live in the Northwest, and yeah, it gets really cold, but we tend to typically sit around about 40 to 45 degrees for the most part. Sometimes it gets really cold, but we usually are at that sea level, so I was not expecting how cold the water would be in that shock. So we were there for about 3 minutes that very first day. Then the next day, we went up to 4 minutes and then start to increase it about 15 seconds each day. Now, the thing that I did not expect is I was hoping when I would go down to the lake, that it would get easier, but it most certainly did not. I dread having to go down the lake because the hardest part was jumping into the lake, that freezing cold lake, and that shock that you get when you're first there. Now, about a minute into it, that's when your body starts to feel more numb and you don't feel much of the pain, and that's when it starts to get a bit easier. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that I made when I first would get out is I would jump right into a hot shower. And this is a big mistake because what it would do is shock my system. I would get the tingling sensations, and so it'd be very uncomfortable, but it also made me very lethargic. And so it really defeated the purpose of why I was doing this in the first place. Now I corrected that. And so what I would do is I would try to have my body naturally heat up and use a space heater and try to walk around to get my body to heat up on its own. But another little tip that I found that was really beneficial, I was reading about, is that when you do a cold plunge, right before you go to the gym, this can help improve endurance with your workouts. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And plus, it was easier to increase my internal body temperature because I would go to the gym. But I also noticed that I was able to do more sit-ups and push-ups and bench more. And so it definitely had a lot of benefits to that. Now, most certainly what I found during that first week is definitely my motivation to get my day started was easier. In fact, I would say that was the hardest thing I had to do was to jump in this cold lake. And after that, I was like, going to the gym, psh, no big deal. Doing some work, psh, no big deal. Shooting a video, psh, no big deal. And so I found that this was definitely serving its purpose of why I was doing this in the first place. Now, heading into week 2, one of the mistakes that I found is that when we got up to 6 minutes and going beyond 6 minutes, eventually we got to 8 minutes, and then I got all the way up to 10 minutes sitting in this cold lake. Because what was happening is also the lake would get colder. As the winter was progressing longer into the month of January, I got down to all the way to about 34 degrees at this time. And so definitely what I found as a challenge when we went past 6 minutes, it was really hard for my body to heat up. And it would take about mid-afternoon before it really did heat up. And that was kind of almost defeating the purpose of why I was doing this, because I was thinking about how cold I was. I was shivering and trying to just warm up my body. So it was taking more time. So I'm like, okay, why am I even doing this? And so throughout that whole week, I built up to 10 minutes. I wanted to get that done and over with so I could say, okay, I did 10 minutes. But I did notice that my mood definitely improved a lot. My motivation was great. I was still very productive, but I definitely needed to scale back and realize that the benefit is definitely about 5 minutes is the sweet spot. Now, the whole reason why I decided to do this is, yeah, I get it's really trendy that a lot of people are going and doing these cold plunges, but I live on a lake and I figured, you know what? Usually in the wintertime, I tend to get this lull. My mood is down, feel a little bit more depressed during this wintertime, especially when it happens right after the holidays. So I figured, you know what? There's a lot of research behind increasing dopamine, motivation, helping with mood. And so that's what I wanted to use it for, to see if it could trigger my day each day to get me motivated each day to be more productive. Now, going into week 3, this is where we scaled it all the way back down to 5 minutes. And so we saw that benefit. So I was able to definitely get my body to heat up, especially when I would go to the gym right after. But some of the big other benefits that I was not expecting, even though, yes, I know whenever you get bruises or soreness, definitely want to use ice packs and that helps. But I was not expecting how quick of a recovery, because I was also just getting back into the gym. I kind of started this like about right at the end of December. And so normally when I get back in the gym after not going to the gym for a couple months, I get really sore. But I noticed that this was not an issue. Like, I'd be sore the night before, but usually it would last a couple days, especially the second day, I'd be really sore. But with the cold plunges, did not have an issue at all. The other thing, I also fell on my wrist really bad, and it hurt really bad. I could hardly move it. And something like that would usually take me about a week, if not 2 weeks, to recover. It only took 2 days of recovery, and it was completely full motion, no pain. And the only thing I could contribute that to is the cold plunges, because there's a lot of science behind this. It definitely helps a lot with inflammation, and this is why a lot of athletes will use this for recovery, and I see it's so beneficial, and I love that aspect that I was not really expecting. Now, still, the lead up of having to walk down to the lake, I always still dread. I was hoping that this wouldn't be an issue, but it's because of having to jump in a really cold lake, especially as the weather was getting colder and colder, and the water temperature was getting colder and colder. Like I said, it got down to about 34 degrees. And then also the outside temperature got all the way down to 24 degrees Fahrenheit. So freezing temperature, below freezing. And so I definitely dreaded this. But once I was in, I was okay. And after a minute, usually the pain wasn't bad. And as long as we got out before 6 minutes, things were good. Now, another thing that I also did not expect to really help with this was my sleep. So typically I would sometimes go bed past 12 o'clock, and then I'm not a morning person at all. And what I noticed with doing this cold plunge, I would be tired about 11 o'clock and would fall right asleep. And then I'd get up about 7 o'clock or even before that time. So I had a really good rhythm with my sleep schedule, which I found very beneficial. That meant I was ready to go in the morning and do my cold plunge and get right started with my workday. Now, if you're new here, then subscribe to the channel, because I talk everything about the brain health and ways to improve your ADHD and other mental health. So definitely subscribe if you're interested. Now, going into week 4, like I was saying, temperature was getting colder and colder, and we got to about 24 degrees, and then the lake started to freeze. Normally here in the Northwest, typically lakes don't freeze over, but in this case, the lake that I was on, it did start to freeze over. It was not like super thick. It was maybe like a 1/4 inch. So not much, but it started to freeze. And when I jumped in, I also wanted to get some footage. And so I was definitely treading water more. And this was probably a bad idea because there was ice in there. And I also jumped in the lake on top of the ice, which, probably not the brightest idea, but it was thin enough that I was okay because I smashed it with my feet as I was jumping. But I did get cut up a little bit, kind of like sticker bushes, so probably not the brightest idea. But as I was in the water, and because I was treading water more and moving the ice, my hands got really to the point where I felt like they were huge because they were so numb and were really painful, extremely painful. This was definitely the pivotal peak of pain that I was experiencing. And it's probably because it was a mixture of the ice and moving around too much that kind of broke my thermal barrier. And so when I would jump in the lakes, typically I would stay still. I'd put my hands, my fists like this, just so I can keep this thermal barrier, and then concentrate on my breath. Slow breathing in and out that can help increase your internal body temperature so that you could stay in these cold plunges for a longer period of time. But in this case, I was moving around too much, and so therefore I definitely was feeling the pain extremely. And because of that, I had tingling sensations in my fingers throughout the entire day and into the next day, which I was not normally experiencing. And so definitely I realized, okay, it's really important to really focus on your breath. It's really important to stay still. Otherwise, this could cause maybe some damaging effects. Now, another benefit that I know cold plunges can help with is increasing your immunity. Now, I have nothing to really back this up other than everyone was getting sick. All my family members, people around me, everybody was getting sick. But during this time, I didn't get sick. So yeah, maybe my immunity definitely improved and increased and prevented me from the sickness that's been going around this entire year. It's been the worst ever with both the cold, flu, virus going around. So maybe the cold plunge had to do something with that. I don't know. But definitely I know that cold plunges can help with your immune system. Now, leading up to the last day, and in fact, I did it past 30 days, on day 31, I decided to jump in, and I actually got other people to do this with me. I had my brother do this with me, and then I had another patient client do this with me as well in the middle of the month, but I got other people to do it, and also even my sister did it with us. Everyone got excited to improve their health and get a part of this whole challenge that we were doing. So that was exciting. Now, on the last day, on the 31st, I decided, okay, I'm going to see how far I can push how long I can go. Even though, yes, I said you don't want to go past 6 minutes, but I just want to do it for the last day. And I was able to get up to 15 minutes. Now, building up to that 15 minutes, I got to that 10 minutes, that was my previous new record. Once I hit that 10-minute mark, that's when I really started to shiver. But I was able to make it to that 15 minutes, but it was definitely excruciating, and I was shivering a lot when I was building up to that. Now, past this challenge, I am still jumping in the lake here and there. Not every day, but I see that there are so many benefits with it, especially with recovery from inflammation. It definitely improved my mood dramatically. That was definitely one of the big benefits that I was using this for, to trigger my motivation to get my day done and be more productive, but improve my mood. So I definitely highly recommend this. Now you got to be careful with this. You want to build up to it, but something I definitely will recommend to my patients and clients more now that I've done this and I've seen the benefits, and I keep on doing it periodically because of all the benefits that it has. Now, if you are someone that's like me that has struggled in the past when it comes to improving your motivation, focus, and drive, then you should watch this video next, where I talk about how to eliminate your ADHD symptoms in this 3-step process. So watch this video next.